Hello everyone, this is going to be a pretty extensive guide for how to play Cider effectively in Absolum. I was a beta tester on this game, so I have quite a bit of experience, not as much as you may think, because playing a video game early is not entirely just getting to play it early. Lots of things can go wrong, lots of things are subject to change, but now I am on the final build of the game, so now is a good time to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through their base moveset, and after that I'll go through the arcana, and then after that I'll be showing a bunch of gameplay from a run I did prior to this recording, which shows some of the best in slot items and rituals for this character, and then you know, some of the execution and cool stuff you can do if you get your build online. So first off, you got your basic S string. This character is very aerial focused, so your S string is not really that great. It does launch enemies into the air, so we'll go ahead and show that off a regular enemy in a little bit, but you can dash cancel at any time. Also go into your skill. Your skill is basically like a Devil Bringer and a grappling hook at the same time. So remember, what was it called in DMC Reboot? It was like Devil Pull and Angel Push or something like that. That's basically how it works. Here, if you hold the button down on a target that can be staggered, meaning an enemy that's out of hyper armor, or an enemy that's not an elite, you will bring them over to you. And what's useful about that is you can go into this. This attack is an OTG. It doesn't launch very far. You also can't really get an up grapple off it, but you can use it with other moves to you know, continue the combo. Hello everyone, this is going to be a pretty comprehensive guide on how to play Cider effectively, along with things you should aim for as a build, like in your main run, and then just also how to play the character in general. Now, I was a beta tester on this game, full disclosure, so I have quite a bit of experience on this, but what you may not realize when you're beta testing a game months before it comes out, it's not just playing the game early. A lot of things go wrong, a lot of things are subject to change, but I've got pretty much a final build of the game now, so I'm going to go ahead and make this quick because the bulk of this video is going to be showing gameplay both with and without commentary, showing how the character works when you have a build online and what to go for and everything like that. So first off, let me go ahead and
I could use
put
some
him out
training.
here. First off, you got your S string. You can kind of dash cancel it, but not to the and continue the combo, but not exactly to the extent of the other characters. So it's not something you want to do unless you're trying to reposition. You do stuff like this, but that will trigger overpressure pretty quickly. Overpressure is basically an anti-infinite system. There are items that will allow you to circumvent that, but for the most part, you don't want to focus on your S string too much. You want to try to go into different moves. So one of the main things that makes this character so aerial combo heavy is the skill button. When you push the button, the character will go straight onto them. If you don't push anything, and they're able to be grappled, you can do that. Now, as you can see here, if I throw, and I do the dash attack, it is an OTG. Now, it can be pretty hard to combo off that. You pretty much will need Tinker Blades, Flying Shredder, or Rising Drill. So let's go ahead and do a quick combo here. You can also grapple in the air, so let's go ahead and continue. Let's try the whole thing here. That's a pretty basic combo that does pretty good damage. Obviously your damage is going to vary depending on what items you get in the run, but I'm going to be showing you how to kind of mitigate the RNG at least a little bit. There's a couple things that will help to mitigate the RNG, but in any case, we're going to go ahead and continue the tutorial here. If you hold the button down, the game does not tell you this as far as I can tell, but if you hold it down, if the character can be grappled, meaning they're not in armor, or they, you know, they don't have armor at all, or you break their armor, it will bring them over to you. And this, what actually is useful about this is, go to your basic string, you get a grapple off that. Or you can do Rising Drill or whatever.
Rising Drill!
Like, that's pretty good because it will give you more like forward, coverage, so you can possibly get another enemy up in that. Rising Drill is probably the best move to start with, I would say. The one below that would be Kinetic Gear. Kinetic Gear is pretty good if you get the air dashes, because it will allow you to initiate a combo. For instance, one part of the final boss is completely shut down by that move. So, I'm not sure if it's good for a first slot. It really depends. When you unlock this character, I would recommend getting enough currency to basically just get all their moves, because a lot of this character's moves are very situational, and they don't work very well in a pinch. Now, there is something that will upgrade it later on, and you'll see that at the end of the video, but generally you don't want to go for the trap-based moves as your primary, because when you start the game, you're only going to have one arcana slot. Later on, after you play for a couple hours, you will get two, and when you get the second arcana, it's going to be random, but if you get Arcana Mastery, which I'll talk about later at the end of the video, the trap moves can actually be very useful, but I would not recommend using them. In any case, Rising Drill is a good combo starter. What's also really good about this move is it has a lot of active frames. Arcana that have a lot of active frames are really useful in this game, because it will allow you to clash with a bunch of moves that either have like a slow startup, or you're unsure, or a lot of times what often happens is you'll fight like an elite in a pack of enemies, and the other enemies don't have armor. What will happen is that you'll clash them and you'll get a big opportunity, especially if you have a double jump or something like that. You can really just plow through the enemies like that. So I'll show a couple basic combos with Rising Drill again. That's a pretty good basic combo that only uses 1 bar of mana, and will also maybe get you some more. Also, has a decent amount of invincibility frames. It is vulnerable at the end of the animation from what I've seen, but most things should be dead anyway, and also, if you're re-rolling to get the air dash, then you're going to be pretty safe anyway, because you'll be able to air dash out of it. Air dashes give this character a lot of depth and versatility and safety, because you can both cancel combos with it, you can also extend combos, you also get a lot of mobility. We'll see that at the end of the video. So if you want to get an enemy into the air quickly, dash attack is pretty good into Rising Drill. And then also, like that. Alright, so that's Rising Drill. Let's go through the rest here. Alright, so now I'm going to show Kinetic Gear, which is the first move that you'll be starting out with, so arguably one of the most important. Kinetic Gear's usefulness mostly comes from being able to launch an enemy while you're high in the air, and then also any humanoid bosses that don't have armor, you will stun them and juggle them pretty much at will. The problem is at the beginning of the game, when you don't have a lot of options, it's not very good, just because the other options like Rising Drill are way better for practicality and just getting a run going to begin with. It's actually quite difficult. So, still do stuff like this. It just does not have the utility of Rising Drill. However, it's a pretty good secondary move, especially if you get some aerial mobility. You get your double jumps and air dashes online. It can actually be really good. You really feel like a ninja using it, which is awesome. But it's just not a very good starting move. You can do stuff like that and extend the combo. Like I said, when you start with the character, this is the only move you're going to have, so I definitely recommend getting all of their moves just to kind of, make it less torture to play the character. Alright, here's Flying Shredder. Flying Shredder is actually really good, because it's a launcher, on-demand launcher.
Flying Shredder!
Again, not the best starting move, just because the utility isn't that great. Countering with this is pretty much not going to happen as consistently as Flying Shredder, but if you can get this as a secondary move, it is quite good.
Flying Shredder!
Flying Shredder is also good for just locking down enemies if you want to deal with something else. It is an active hitbox. I'm not quite sure how good it is for clashing. I would recommend Rising Drill over this. for your first arcana, but as a second arcana, it's quite good. Tinkerblade is an on-demand ranged attack. Now, when you have arcana, this can be pretty good. It's also really enhanced by having air dashes and things like that, but again, not the best starter. Do stuff like that, get a little bit of an extension off an OTG. And that's basically it for Tinkerblade. Pretty much all the moves are pretty good with Arcana Mastery, but that's kind of a late game thing, and it's a pretty long chain of side quests, so I kind of just want to show them in their base form. Also, you cannot use Arcana Mastery in the training room, so you'll have to refer to the end of the video for that.
Do you want to leave?
Alright, finally is Spider-Mine.
Spider-Mine!
Spider-Mine is also not a very good first take. That's kind of, you notice a pattern here. This character's biggest flaw is that without Arcana Mastery, there really are only a few viable Arcana to choose at the beginning. And even then, you're pretty much always going to want to use Tinkerblade's Kinetic Gear or Rising Drill. Those are your best starting Arcana by far, for you to actually have a chance to both have fun playing the game and see the credits. Now, when you have Arcana Mastery for this, it actually splits into 3, and it covers a pretty huge chunk of the screen. So, again, if you have your mobility going, it can be pretty sick to just plop that on the ground from really high up in the air and put everybody else up in the air with you. If you still have a jump that's active, you know, you haven't exhausted all your jumps because you haven't touched the ground yet, it can be useful, but it's heavily carried by Arcana Mastery, so I definitely would not recommend using it as a starter. If you get Arcana Mastery from one of the bosses, I would heavily recommend, you know, if you do get Spider-Mine, it's definitely worth it, but only as a secondary. Clockwork Marionette is not quite useless. I'd say once you play this character properly and you're pretty much always in the air and juggling things and you have such insane mobility and combo potential, there isn't really much of a reason to use this, unfortunately. I haven't tested it with Arcana Mastery. The problem is just that it does take aggro, but I'm sure if you play this game with friends, which I'm sure a lot of you are going to do, the game does have rollback and everything, you probably don't want to use this because it's probably just going to make things more confusing. Obviously, you would never take this as your first Arcana. If you get it as your second one, I'm sure there's some use for it. Probably get back attacks on some enemies because back attacks are pretty powerful on this character. There's also an inspiration that allows you to dash through the enemy. If you ever played Tales of Legendia, you know you had to pass through in that game. It's basically the same thing, like you'll dash through them and you'll have their back exposed. It could be useful for that, but I think this is probably the most gimmicky move that this character has, and there's not really much of a reason to use it. If you do get it as your second Arcana, I mean, you're pretty much just stuck with it at that point, but it will still have some use. I'll try to get a video of it up with Arcana Mastery later. Alright, so I was talking about how to mitigate RNG. When you find this hidden museum here, what this basically is a way to choose a starting item. Now, you can buy as much stuff as you want in here, so if you want to grind for like 30 runs and buy everything in here, you totally can, which is pretty cool. But the price does increase, so you generally want to go for things that really help with this character. Best in slot would be the Wind Mox, because the Wind Mox will make it so the first ritual at the start of the game, when you first go into the run and you haven't fought anything, this will make sure that the first item, or the first ritual, will have a wind choice. And this game has a weighted system, kind of like I mentioned at the end of the video, where basically, if you pick a lot of the same ritual, it will keep giving you more of them. So having this is really good, and it only costs 100 crystals because it will basically guarantee that you can get a wind-centric run going, and wind is undeniably best in slot for this character, so you definitely want this. You want this by all means. For other things that can help, Feather Charm is pretty good, Ring of Magic is pretty good, but you can get mana gain from other sources. If you're juggling a lot of enemies in the air, your mana gain will stack, or your meter gain will stack, so definitely try to shoot for getting a couple of these when you start a run. Luck can be pretty good for crits because there is a purple item over here that gives you healing for crits, and since you hit so much, especially if you get the inspiration that makes it so your arm blades do more hits, you can actually heal quite a bit. But these are quite expensive, so I wouldn't really go for too many of these. No more repetitive on the Mobius band. Can be nice, but I think it's a little bit too expensive, and you don't really need it because this character has so many setups that allow you to just put somebody in a combo again after you've knocked them down, even when they're in overpressure. Crown of Harmony can be really good for this character because most of the best in slot stuff is wind. For secondary elements, I would recommend fire. Fire is pretty good because there's a dual or duo ritual that will make it so when you make tornadoes, like a fire will come out. And then also thunder has a good synergy as well. Water is definitely not recommended. However, the one that makes it so a tidal wave comes out when you dash is actually secret top tier on this character, simply because even when you're air dashing, the tidal wave will spawn on the ground. So what that means is while you're doing all these crazy dashes, everybody is taking damage. It's actually quite good, but not something I would shoot for. Other than that, you don't really want to use the other ones on this character. I would say wind first, fire and thunder are like tied, and then if you get water, definitely go for getting it on dash, because that will allow you to do a lot of crowd control. Movement speed also increases damage of your run attack. Your run attack is your main OTG option that doesn't require any meter. This is a common item, so you get a lot of these from the shop. I would recommend this. I think there's one over here that increases Clash Window. Attacks from behind, the Dry Hand Charm, can be pretty good as well, especially if you have the inspiration that makes you dash behind them. That's just like a flat 50% damage increase. More mana is always good. Deflect spawns mana is pretty good. If you can afford this one is pretty good because if you take the time to destroy everything, you will essentially have a lot of extra money. Those are pretty much the ones to shoot for. The one that increases Clash Window can help too, but generally you don't want to spend too much on the beginning of a run, especially if you haven't unlocked everything, just because, you know, if you die, you lose all that money, so you definitely want to make sure you've unlocked everything first. But I think minimum 100 crystals for this is really good, just because it will allow you to get the run going, because this character doesn't suck without wind, but the character is exponentially better with it, so there's no reason to not buy this. Anything else is up to your discretion, but I pretty much showed most of the best in slot items. Now, there are some pretty cool synergies you can do. You have the Crown of Dissonance, which gives you 2.5 luck per ritual family held, and you get a lot of wind. It can also be really good to get this, because this one makes it so there's a 5% chance of being evaded, affected by luck, and because you're going to have a lot of wind, you're going to have a lot of evade chance. And that can be pretty nice, because sometimes, no matter how well you play, you will get hit. There are a number of enemies in this game who will actively try to hit you out of the air. It is not like the DMC reboot where you're just invincible when you're in the air. You do have to pay attention, so this can kind of save you in some cases, especially like against bad matchups like the Fish Boss, who doesn't really, you know, vibe very well with this character's moveset. Anyway, hope that helps.
Like my childhood. Tinker Blade! The gale bows to none, nor do I. Rising drill! If only I could be invisible. Rising drill! Rising drill! Tinker Blade! Tinker Blade! The bitter comes out better with a stolen ritual.
You aren't that hard to find. Here's your share from our last little outing. Make the most of it.
Rising drill! Rising drill! Rising drill! Rising drill! If only I could be invisible. Rising drill! Let the wind chase us. I shall not flee. to none, nor do I.
What?
Rising drill! How about you let me through?
Alright, my apologies for how awkwardly edited this is, but this game is very hard to make guides for, because unlike other roguelikes, your build can really open up different options for characters, and for Cider, one of the best things for them is wind. Now, if you played Streets of Rage 4 survival mode, you might remember that you could get extra jumps, and jumps gave you a jump cancel. What's really good about wind with this character is that you can grapple onto a character or an enemy with the skill button, and then immediately jump, and it will launch them. And then also, if you get the air dash inspiration, which is basically a run exclusive buff that you can get that will leave, will disappear when the run ends, whether you beat it or you die. This is really good. It's hard to show it without an enemy, but this allows you to get multiple air dash cancels, so you could basically put an enemy into overpressure very easily with this character. So I think you could do is like this. You can like jump towards an enemy. Like say these summoned enemies, your companions or enemies. You go like this. Like that will launch them, and then also if you use this, when you're in the grapple animation, push jump, Cider will do a double jump. And then from there you get a free launch, even on enemies that are shielded, like the guys from the Crimson Order with the big like riot shield and the spear. You can even do it on them. And also, what an air dash allows you to do is, like say you want to do like some Marvel vs. Capcom stuff like Magneto, back forward, and then do your down skill. And that will allow you to get back down to the ground. If you have a jump available, you can also go back into the air that way if you need to continue the combo or put a high-class enemy into the air. Alright, so let's go ahead and show this on some enemies. There you go.
Take a blade! Rising drill!
One of the reasons why Rising Drill is really good, because if you have a jump cancel, which you need to get from wind, let me go ahead and show it here. It's this right here. You can see this is a very heavy wind build. It's called Tornado Jump. If you can get extra jumps, it's nice, but one is pretty much okay, just because it will allow you to do what I said there, where you can quickly get enemies into the air. You can also extend combos on bosses as well. This is called Arcana Mastery. Arcana Mastery is obtained through a hidden side quest that varies for each of the 4 characters. Unfortunately, it's also hard to make guides for this because you can only do it once. I might get around to making a new file and just using assist mode invincibility to get back, but unfortunately it's going to be really hard for me to do that. But Arcana Mastery, it adds different properties and upgrades your Arcana. Like for instance, Rising Drill here. See that tornado around the character sprite? That's actually like an extra like hitbox from what I understand. It also seems to do more damage as well. Oops. You can use it right there. Use the air dash to get back down to the ground.
Take a blade!
Even good on armored enemies and bosses. So for things that are ideal for Cider, wind is really good. If you can get fire with the Arcana ring, Chain Lightning has a lot of duo rituals, kind of like duo boons in Hades. If you can get the one that makes it so tornadoes spawn on your X attack, and you can stack that with chain lightning. You can pretty much just delete the entire screen. Unfortunately, like I said, the game releases very soon, and I don't know if I'll have time to record a video with a build like that, but there are some ways to control that, which I'll show after this clip here. Yeah, he breaks out of that. Boss is kind of a bad matchup for Cider.
Rising drill! Finger blade!
I mean, as you can see, the combos are pretty nuts. If you can stagger a boss, depending on what your second arcana is, you can pretty much take off like an entire phase of their health bar.
Am I alive? Yes?
Gave us true freedom, peace, cleanliness, and security.
Rising drill! Finger blade! Do I really need to breathe? Yeah.
The Crimson Order brings peace. Rituals are a threat in the wrong hands. Magic must be controlled.
Rising drill!
The time. Enemy.
Finger blade! Rising drill!
It's always a pleasure to see your glistening spot.
Lightning drill! Shiny.
Do not let them disturb the Sun King!
Tinkerblade! Tinkerblade! Lightning drill! Tinkerblade! Lightning drill!
Alright, there's some endgame fights. Like I said, this is
I was hungry.
not a very easy, stylish action game to make a guides for because it's so build dependent, and you can see the whole map here. You basically go through 3 of these levels. So you start in the Granary, which is outside the Sanctuary, and then you go to Jeroba or Yeldrim, and then past that point it always ends at Asterios. Now, I don't want to show the final boss fights because I don't want people to get drive-by spoilers. I'm pretty sure that most people watching this don't care about those kind of things, but this is basically the last part I can show of this build before it gets into spoiler territory. But yeah, you definitely want to go for wind with Cider. As much wind as possible is really good because you know, the main thing that's going to put the build online is having the tornado jump. If you can get 1 level, it's good, but if you can't, it's okay too, just because you know, 1 is more than enough to basically kill most enemies, but if you have 2, you're gonna have a lot of extra wiggle room on like elites and bosses. You'll be able to, if you don't kill them outright, you know, if they have a phase, you can pretty much put them into a phase transition like instantly. This character is pretty busted, but high execution and very build dependent. You need a couple things online. If you can use this item here to start your run from the museum with wind, it definitely helps because the game seems to have some kind of weighting system where the more of a certain type of ritual that you pick, like see here, I got mostly wind and time because I started with wind. I built around wind because it is definitely Cider's best element. You see that the game just gives you more and more of it. So if you can start with that, it's recommended to pick wind. Your best in slot's going to be the jump. Everything else is pretty much just going to improve that. Now, time can also be good on this character as well, because if you can get it off Clash or Dodge, it's basically going to allow you to get a guaranteed air combo on almost anybody, even some of the hyper-armored elites. And then for your inspirations, best in slot is pretty much the pneumatic heals, which gives you 3 dashes. Dashes normally have a pretty long cooldown. This can actually be more useful than it seems, because certain enemies, you won't be able to counter them, or the clash timing is very strict, or the hitbox is really large, and 1 dash won't be enough to clear it. So you do 3 dashes like that, you can clear like basically any attack in the game, and then the air dash, as you saw in those endgame fights, is good because it will allow you to have a lot of extra mobility in the air, and then like I said, you can go down like this. Sorry, I need to make sure I was properly recording. You can go down with the down skill and use that to get back on the ground. If you have another jump, you can push your jump button after that and launch them up into the air. So this character is probably the only one I could make a really consistent build for. This character is just built for the wind element, so you want to build around that as much as possible. There are some other ones that are pretty good, however, I wouldn't recommend getting the one that makes you do like this big giant swing with your mechanical arm. The reason why is because when you hold the Y button or triangle button or X button, whichever platform you're on, the top right button, when they do this, if you hold the button, it will actually pull them towards you. If you just push the button, you go towards them. Now that can be good for a number of reasons, because it will actually, you know, start a combo. So if you want to approach from a distance, you can use this, and then when they come towards you, you can use this to OTG, and then Rising Drill is a really good combo to, you know, start a juggle. Yeah, that's basically the gist of the build for this character. They are definitely my most fun character. Obviously, Shiva was my main in Streets 4, and I really wish that he had the jump cancel in the main, you know, campaign story mode. But now, they took that feedback in those improvements from Streets 4 survival mode, and they made it into a just a full-fledged thing that everybody can do. So every character can do this, but depending on the character, it may not be very useful. But for Cider and the purpose of this guide, it is definitely their best-in-slot item. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope this helps. I was a beta tester on this game, so I did influence some minor feedback. I don't really want to go into detail too much, but Cider became a monster because of a bunch of feedback, not just from myself, but other people. Very fun, execution-heavy character. Unfortunately, ground game isn't very good, so there are some bad matchups, like the big fish boss that I just fought. He's kind of a bad matchup for this character, because you know, when you do a clash, he does that belly flop and you get stunned. The grab is kind of a bad thing as well, because it can hit you in the air, but most bosses, this character can completely trivialize if you're playing properly. So I hope this helps. I'll put out some more videos probably later this week. Thanks for watching.